students. I hope you will be okay. Now we want to speak about entity description or description of the architecture or the structure of any device or any system in VHDL. As I told you at first, we have entity definition. In definition or entity definition, we define the entity, its name and its inputs and outputs, their mode and their type. But here in description, we want to speak about the structure of the system. We really describe how the information flow from inputs to outputs, or what's the relation, logical or mathematical or arithmetical relation between outputs and inputs, or what are the subsystems of the system and their connections. Then in entity description we describe how the system works, or we describe how the system is composed of elements. But how can we describe the entity? What are the keywords? Before this, I must say that, as you know, we can have different description of a one thing. For example, here we can have one entity. We must have one entity, but we can have different descriptions from many points of view. Then we can reach to this figure. We have only one entity, but we can have different descriptions of the system. Okay, now we want to speak about the method of description of entity. And we must start by the first keyword, architecture. Here we have architecture. For example, we want to write the description of a full adder. We defined the full adder in previous lectures, and now we want to write the VHDL code of the full adder. We must start by the main keyword, architecture, and then the name of our description or the name of our architecture. We have different names. We can have different names. It is better to select a name that is related to the method of description. For example, if we have a behavioral modeling of a system, it is better to select behavioral as the name of the architecture. If we have, for example, data flow modeling of a system, it is better to select data flow. And if we have a structural modeling, it is better to define or to select a structural as the name of the architecture. Okay, now we can have, for example, behavioral modeling of the system. Then we select behavioral or the acronym of it, or a part of this. For example, I select BEH as the first part of behavioral as the name of the architecture. Architecture, behavioral, behavioral of the name of the entity full adder, and the last keyword is. We must start an environment in VHDL by begin in many cases, and we must end it by end keyword in mm, many cases, or maybe in all cases. Then we first start by begin, and then we end it by end behavioral. And between begin and end, our VHDL code for description can be used. Or another example of behavior, excuse me, another